How can you help your students improve their metacognitive abilities? You're going to learn how right now. Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Hall from Literacy Teachers, and I'm all about helping you inspire, motivate, and change how your students read and write for academic success. Today, we're going to hear from Erin Silcox about how in your teaching, you can demonstrate what it means to be metacognitive and do so in a way that's going to help your students improve their own metacognitive abilities and ultimately increase their abilities to comprehend text. So let's go check out what she has to say.
Teaching students to be metacognitive requires you to understand what metacognition is first, and then next to make your metacognition public to your students. Therefore, make sure that you're starting with a very solid understanding of what it means to be metacognitive. That means, and what you can do for this is start when you're reading to pay attention to any time that you stop comprehending. And then notice what it is. Is it a word you don't understand? Is it a whole phrase? Is the syntax wacky? Are you just not paying attention because you're tired and maybe lying in bed? Did you actually fall asleep, which I do sometimes? And then you have to go, that's in jest, but what you're doing when you're monitoring your own metacognition is you are paying attention to when your comprehension slips and then what you do about it. So we'll get a little bit more into that in some other videos, but pay attention to, bottom line, when you're reading, if you stop comprehending, why it is that you stop comprehending and what you choose to do about it, if anything. So then when you're going in to teach your students to be metacognitive using a discipline-specific text, the first step is to start by picking a text that is going to let you do that. So begin the process by focusing on a discipline-specific text that will simultaneously add to your students' content knowledge and demonstrate how to read metacognitively. By adding to the content knowledge, what I mean is this is something that's either I am a science teacher, so maybe it's from a science textbook. Maybe it's a scientific article written for students by students. Or, for that situation, you want to make sure it's not way too scientific and it's more at a level that they can read, but something that's related to what you're teaching and that is pretty vocabulary rich. Also, make sure the text that you pick is something that your students can understand, but that they can also find, that you can also find comprehension hangups with pretty easily. Find a text that perhaps has a unique structure or is dense with vocabulary that you can easily find hangups. So your comprehension the first time you read it isn't solid, and at the same time, it's something that your students can understand with your help. So as you can tell, it's kind of a balancing act to pick this, at least the first piece. So notice or realize that for this first time through, this is going to be a demonstration. So this doesn't have to be the text that you expect students to read independently. So it could be slightly above where they are. The idea is that you're building content knowledge, but more than anything, you're showing them what it means to be metacognitive. Next, I want you to determine what tool you will use. So you can keep it simple, and by tool I mean what is it that you're using to track your metacognitive acts or your comprehension slips. So it can be a simple highlighter and a pen. It could be marking up a PDF, marking up a Google Doc. You can use post-it notes. You can print the text with wide margins for writing in the margins. Realize that the notes you're making, though, for instance, with these wide margins, the notes that you're making aren't like annotations. They're not comments on the text. It's not, I found this interesting, or I have a question about. It's more like you're highlighting or underlining or putting a star next to, whatever it is, the place in the text where you get hung up. And then the thing that you would write is either what it was specifically that hung you up or what went through your mind, and if you'd like, the fix-it strategy that you use. So how did you reconcile that comprehension slip and make sure that you actually did comprehend the text? Next, after you get your text and tool, you should practice reading, catching metacognition in the act, on your own. Note each time that you slip up in comprehension on the document and really figure out what system you want to use. Realize or recognize what it is that you'd like to have your students do in the end with their own metacognitive practice so that you can both perfect it on your own and then also make sure that they're ready to, that you're ready to show them when the time comes. And then finally, with a fresh copy of your text and the tool, you're going to read it out loud and make sure that they have a copy in hand to follow along. So for the first time that you're reading it with them, tell them that they're not doing anything except following along. As you read, dictate whenever you have metacognition in action, whenever you have a comprehension slip, or when you had one the first time you read, right? So the second time you read, it's going to be easy, but the first time you read is when you really start to write these things down. And then mark it in whenever you decide to mark it, and discuss the fix-it strategy. As you have some choices, you can discuss the fix-it strategy maybe a second time through. So read it the first time through looking for when you had those comprehension slips, and then the second time through show students, okay, this is where I kind of got stuck, and then this is what I did about it. You can figure out how you want that to look for you. It'll be maybe unique for everybody. And then really, you're doing this several different times with several different texts, modeling, and then slowly handing the reins over to students and monitoring them during their learning of metacognition so that you can make sure that they're doing it right. So stay with me for the next video to learn more about metacognition.